I want to talk about the gospel lesson for this morning because it's such a cool lesson, and for us to be able to see Jesus in action as he deals with the people who are living around him. So we need a little bit of context. So in Jerusalem, the famous city of David, there is going to be the great festival of Passover. There are tons of people who are going to want to get to Jerusalem, and that's what's happening during this time. Tons of people. Some scholars have estimated 2 to 3 million people are flooding into Jerusalem. So tons and tons and tons of people are trying to do that. Think Walmart on the day after Thanksgiving. Tons and tons and tons of people are trying to make their way. And one of the gateways to be able to get to Jerusalem is right through Jericho. So it's right where Jesus is headed. He is with the throng of people who are headed through Jericho. And also, is that? I forgot to. Jesus and the disciples did not have cell phones, I will tell you. So one of the things that was also in Jericho at the time were toll booths. You know, all of you, I would imagine, have been out on the turnpike, and you go through the toll booth, and you pay your toll to continue to go on the toll booth. Well, there were toll booths that were there in Jericho. But it wasn't just to allow you to get through. It was to pay your taxes as you went on your way to Jerusalem. And so if you were a shepherd and you were bringing your flocks to be able to sell in Jerusalem, so that they'd be used for sacrifices, or they'd be sold to other people for marketing purposes. Then you'd have your 5 little sheep that were going through the toll, and the Roman government, who was the one who was in charge, would say, well, so for every sheep that goes through this gate that goes on the way to Jerusalem, each one you've got to pay some amount. So we'll say $15. So this shepherd, who was not very rich, didn't have a lot of money, pretty poor, would go through, and he would go through to be able to pay his toll, and the person who was the tax collector would be there at that booth, and he would look down at his paperwork and he'd say, the Romans say that the toll needs to be $15. Let's say for you, Mr. Shepherd, as you're coming through, $120 a head. Is that fair? Not at all. I mean, not even close to fair. Not even close to fair. But was there, a better business bureau to appeal to? Not in your life. I mean, as a monopoly, they could charge whatever it was that they wanted to. And so they would go through and they would have to pay that amount of money. And the money that they had to pay then came out of the mouths of the families and the kids that were being supported by that business. So as people were looking at the poverty that was there among the people, they knew what it was like to try to make ends meet, to try to put food on the table. And they looked at these tax collectors, and they hated them. I mean, they hated them. It made their blood boil because they were the ones who they had fancy clothes. I mean, their kids went to the best schools and did all the best things, the most fun things. These people got squat, and they hated them. So all of the wealth that they saw just made them even more angry, and this man who was called Zaccheus in the story for this morning, he was not just one of those toll takers. There were a lot of toll takers. He was the chief of them all. He was the guy who was in charge, and so he got a cut of it all, and he was wealthy, and he was rolling in it, and people hated him. It's this question of what's mine, what's yours, what's ours. I want to play a little game here for a second. So I need a volunteer who has $1. Can you get $1? right? All right. So now what I need you to do, congregation, is I need you to shout out what it is that, if you were me, what it is that you would say if it was mine, yours, mine, or ours. Okay? Does that make sense? So if I point to this shirt, you're going to say yours, mine, or ours. You're going to say no. You're going mine. Exactly right. So you're going to, from my perspective, is as if you are me. Okay? Does that make sense? Because we have to keep you confused. So if I point to this shirt, and then you will all say, exactly right. So if I point to his shirt, you will all say, exactly. See, they catch on really fast. So this hair is, this arm is, this man is, yours. Very good, very good, very good. Let me see. This chair is, I was just sitting there. But I don't own it. Isn't this confusing? So it is my chair, but it really is ours, isn't it? And so if I say to him, Nikki, I got a present for you.
Really?
Yeah, it's very exciting, isn't it? I hope blue is your color, because here you go.
Yay!
Yay!
I got a coffee chair.
There you go. So can I give that to him? I can't either, can I? No, because it's ours. It belongs to us. Okay, get out of my chair. So this dollar, whose is this? So originally, if this is a loan, and this is, I'm giving this kind of demonstration thing, so originally it's yours, right? Right? I'm borrowing, right?
Yeah, borrowing.
Yeah. So then, do you want to give this to me?
No.
No? No? Are you sure?
Uh-huh.
What if I give you $5 for it?
Oh, okay.
Would you do that?
Yeah.
I'm not going to do that. So, but what if you did give it to me? Then whose would it be?
Yours.
Mine, right. So at first it's, but he gives it to me and it's, what if it's, what if we say that it's just a loan, okay? So it's back. So it's yours. You borrowed it from your dad. You loaned it to me. It's a gift now. So you've given it to me. It's mine. And now you want it back.
Give me my money back.
So whose is it now? When do you want it back? It's mine, right? Isn't it mine? Isn't it mine? It is. It is. Whose is this? It is ours, isn't it? It is ours. Now, let me ask you this question. So, what's God's?
Us. Everything.
Okay, so this?
Yes.
So even though it's ours, it's God's. What about this? What about this? There you go. You can return it. It gets confusing, doesn't it? It gets confusing. It's confusing about who owns what and how it is that we handle it and who's responsible for it. So if something is ours, I can't just give it away. Even if I'm the rector, I can't just give it away because it's ours, right? And yet in our culture, we have a preoccupation with this whole thing using the word mine. Mine. I want to make it mine. That was part of the issue around all of the economy and all of the people who want to continue to accumulate things that are mine. It is part of the struggle that the people who were at the toll booths collecting taxes. It was about what's yours and what's mine. It is about Zaccheus and what it was that all of a sudden was mine as he was collecting all of the money from people who could not afford it. And the question then that helps us to put perspective on it all is, where's God in it all? Where is God in all of this stuff? So in our hearts, in our bodies, in our houses, in our beds, in the refrigerator, wherever it is that we go, whatever it is that we do, it is God's. And so we are given the privilege of being able to handle it, but it's confusing sometimes, not easy always to figure it out. So Jesus is going as part of this mob through Jericho, and this chief tax collector wants to be able to go see him. In order to be able to see him, so because he is so hated, and he's just a short little guy, to be able to, if you were a short little guy and people hated you, are you going to be excited about getting out in the mobs and kind of walking out with a bunch of other people? Probably not, right? People would have been very happy to see him coming and flip him an elbow in the face. So it's not a wonder. He knows where Jesus is coming. He wants to see Jesus, and we don't really know why, but there's something going on inside of him that wants to see Jesus. He knows what it's like to be who he is. He knows what it's like to have all of this guilt, this blood on his hands, and he wants to be able to see this Jesus. So he goes and he climbs up into a tree, I think, in part to see, and in part because he's hiding in the leaves. He's just up there hiding. What self-respecting professional guy wants to be caught up in a tree? Nobody does. And yet he's up there in the tree, and he's kind of looking through, just wanting to catch a glimpse of Jesus, because that's as close as he's going to get to this traveling preacher rabbi. And Jesus comes by, and he looks up at that tree, and he sees Zaccheus, and it says his name, and I have every confidence Jesus knew exactly who he was. Everybody knew exactly who he was because they hated him so much. Jesus looked up in the tree, he saw him there, and what do you think the people would have wanted him to do as the preacher, the rabbi, to tell this sucker who's up there in that tree? What would you want him to tell him? Oh, wouldn't you just want him to ream him out? Just tell him exactly what kind of a scumbag he really is on behalf of the people. Isn't that what you would want to hear from him, from a religious leader? Just think about the people you'd like to ream out. Really tell them what for. It feels good, doesn't it? Jesus looks at him up there in this tree, and he says, Zaccheus, come down out of that tree, because I need to come and stay at your house today. I want to tell you, no self-respecting person went anywhere near this guy's house. Never in the house. Never. And Jesus says, I've got to come to your house today. Come on down. I've got to come to your house today. I don't think he climbed out of that tree. I think he fell out of that tree. And he got up, and Jesus went, and the word is, I need to stay at your house, to stay overnight. So Jesus went, and he stayed overnight in that man's house. And then people are offended. I mean, they're just offended by what it is that Jesus has done. He's pardoning him. He's going easy on sin. You know, he's allowing him to get away with all of this stuff. The next day, Jesus and Zaccheus come out of the house, and they hear the mumbling and the groaning that's going on. And as a result of having spent time with Jesus, the response that comes out of Zaccheus' mouth is what? I'm going to give away half of everything I have. And everybody that I've ripped off, which is a lot of people, I'm going to restore it. I'm going to give it back 4 times what I took. Now, just think about that. So I'm going to give away half of all that I have, and then and then whatever I've taken that's been inappropriate, I'm going to restore it 4 times. The reason that he only gave away half was because the other half was going to go to restitution. The guy was going to have nothing left afterwards. You remember the story of the rich young ruler? The guy who was wealthy and came to Jesus, and Jesus said, go sell everything that you've got, give it to the poor, and come follow me. And remember, he was wealthy, and so he didn't do that. This guy did it. He knew, just after meeting with Jesus, there was this sense of Jesus being willing to come into his life, even a broken, hated man. Jesus would come in and spend time with him. And what gushed out was gratitude and love. Nothing else mattered anymore. Nothing else mattered. But just gratitude and love for how it was that Jesus changed him. That's always what happens when Jesus comes into our hearts, when Jesus comes into us. When we find ourselves hiding behind the leaves, in the bushes, knowing that we're afraid of what it is that other people think of us or what it is that we do, we know that we've got guilt on our hands. We hide from the gaze of Jesus. And Jesus says, come down out of that tree. I want to come to your house. I want to come to your house. I want to spend time with you. And I want to tell you about the tremendous love that God has for you and what comes out of us. And you can always tell because it's just gratitude that we are loved. And so then within the community of Jesus, within what's ours, this sense of just gratitude and generosity, being willing to say that if I insist on it being mine, the world gets really, really small. But if it's ours and it's God's, all of a sudden it's really, really, really big. And it's much more interesting and adventurous. We're in the process of our stewardship campaign. And there are 50 people who have agreed to be ambassadors here for St. Mary's. The purpose of their involvement is to be able to contact every family, every person who's here at St. Mary's, and to ask them how you're doing with St. Mary's, and is God changing your life? Are there things that God is doing in your life that is changing you? What kinds of things is it that you want to be involved or active in? How is it that out of just the goodness that Jesus has done for your life, how is it that you want to be involved in the people of St. Mary's and around in this community, giving yourself to them? And to be able to just kind of to be a participant in the great things that God has done. Do you know we just had the thrift shop just had a Christmas sale, and they raised over $1,100 just this weekend. And all of that money is going to the Samaritan Center, which is a residential home for at-risk boys. They made a difference in the lives of those kids. I got a phone call from a woman who was a member at St. Mary's who left. She's an older woman. She was in the Miami area. She found herself getting kicked out of her apartment, and she called and asked for help. And because of you, we were able to keep her in her place until she can find another solution to her housing problem. Because of you. Your generosity makes a difference. Your investment in this place allows people to receive the support and the love and the care that in this world, it's often very jagged and people are scrambling around about what's mine, mine, mine. We're about what's God's. We're about what's ours together as a community. Let me tell you what I think happened to Zaccheus. Zaccheus' life was changed. We don't know kind of where it went from there, but my suspicion is Jesus was on his way to Jerusalem. And so I think Zaccheus kind of went along with Jesus to Jerusalem and watched him with the disciples. I think he watched the storm of the crowds key up as Jesus was willing to love even sinners like him. I think that Jesus watched the Romans hang him on a cross. I think that Zaccheus was there when they laid him in a tomb. I think his heart was absolutely broken, and he said, well, this is a bunch of gobbledygook. I just gave away all my money for nothing. And I think Zaccheus was there when he rose from the tomb. And I think the reason that we know Zaccheus' name is because he was a member of a church someplace. And he continued to tell his story year after year after year about how God had changed him and made him a different person. That's what we're about. We're about gratitude and love and changing lives and seeing kids be healthy and marriages strong and households shining with a light of goodness and joy. That's because that's who God has made us to be. Amen? Amen. Amen.